tries off my sweater and I'm obsessed. Time to block her. I didn't do a gauge swatch for this, and I know you're saying it looks small, but we all know that blocking's magic. Let's block this bad boy and I'll see you on the flip side. Oh my gosh, she's perfect. Just as I predicted, we gained about a foot of length in each arm and maybe a foot and a half in the torso, which is exactly what I was hoping for. Blocking is magic, you guys. If you've spent any time on the knitting internet in the past couple of months, I'm sure you've seen those blocking transformation videos. Those videos are getting more and more dramatic, like they're getting more extreme. And I don't know if you've noticed it too. Sweaters are starting to gain inches and inches of length in the body and the sleeves. I understand why those videos are getting more and more dramatic. It's because the algorithm favors dramatic, exciting content. And the more dramatic the transformation, the more clicks and likes and follows and shares and comments a video gets. Knitters are encouraged by the algorithm to block their sweaters dramatically. I've gotten a lot of comments from new knitters asking, wait, what is blocking? Isn't it when you stretch out your garment? Wait, is it washing? The algorithm has encouraged those dramatic blocking videos, and it's led to some confusion with new knitters. Social media can be really amazing for sharing ideas and techniques, but it also can lead to some viral bad habits. And that's why I believe so strongly in the power of learning from a really experienced instructor. And that's why I love Skillshare, the sponsor of today's video. Skillshare is an online learning platform with thousands of inspiring classes for creatives, taught by world-class professionals like designers, artists, and entrepreneurs. Whether you're into photography, illustration, or knitting, you'll find classes that truly help you grow. One of my favorite things about Skillshare is how easy it is for me to take advantage of little pockets of time I can find in my day to really elevate my knitting skills super easily with expert instructors I can trust. One class I really recommend is Knitting 101, Everything You Need to Knit with Confidence by Vincent Williams. Vincent explains just enough to satisfy a new knitter's curiosity without overwhelming them with knowledge. But most importantly, he reminds you that there's no right or wrong way to knit. And once you finish Vincent's class, Skillshare has learning paths that guide you through the next steps, through knitting cables and colorwork and sweaters, so you can always advance your skills. The first 500 people to click the link in the description or scan this QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Join today and start learning from instructors you can trust. Thank you so much again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now, I've watched a lot of blocking tutorials to try to get to the bottom of this, and they all cover the same basic steps, but there's a key piece that's missing from every one of the tutorials that I watched, and I think it's key to blocking your garments effectively, and that is using a schematic. So what is a schematic? A schematic is a little line drawing of a garment that you'll usually find towards the back of a knitting pattern. I see them more often in garments like sweaters that you're going to wear, and less often in something like a scarf where the shape is kind of implied. The schematic will show you measurements at various points throughout the garment. We usually pick a garment size based on the bust measurement, but the schematic will also show you hip measurement, potentially waist measurement, upper arm circumference, the circumference of the neckline, even the breadth of the chest. Depending on the complexity of the project, it may show you some different construction elements like short rows. The most important piece is the measurements throughout the garment. Now, when it comes to blocking a garment, it's usually pretty straightforward. Soak it in room temperature water, maybe with a little wool wash, wring it out and get as much water out as you can, and then lay it flat to dry, as it can remove some of the dirts and oils that were accumulated over the process of creating that garment, as it lets the fiber that you knit the garment out of relax into shape. Your stitches will even out just a little bit, and it does give you an opportunity to open up any stitch patterns like cable or lace that you may want to have an extra pop with. But how much do you stretch them? How much should you pull? That's where the schematic comes into place. At the point that you are laying that garment out to dry, you need a tape measure. You are going to gently pull at that garment. We're not trying to stretch too aggressively, but we are trying to ensure that the different areas of that garment that are depicted in the schematic are also showing up correctly in the measurements on the garment that you are actually touching. Now, let's say you've knit a pullover and the bust circumference is meant to be 40 inches. You're going to lay that garment out gently, and you're going to bring your tape measure over the top and ensure that your tape measure is reading 20 inches across. It's not senseless stretching, it's thoughtful, careful, measured, laying out to shape. Now, depending on the sweater I'm knitting, I may follow a schematic more or less closely. For a sweater with 12 to 20 inches of positive ease, I don't worry about a half an inch off because it's not going to make a dramatic difference in the fit of that sweater. But if it's something fitted or something with a lot of shaping, I will be much more careful about the measurements of that garment, especially if it's a gift knit. I'm very careful about those measurements. Now, once I have the sweater matching the measurements that are on my schematic, I will use pins to hold it in place to ensure it doesn't shrink up while it's drying, because we want to make sure it holds the measurements from the schematic. Now, if you knit a gauge swatch and you blocked that gauge swatch,
You picked a size based on the schematic that you were confident would fit you, and you block your sweater by utilizing the measurements of the schematic to guide how you're shaping and pinning down that garment. You are guaranteed a garment that will fit how you want it to fit. There will be no surprises. It doesn't have to be a guessing game how you should stretch your garment out in blocking. It's all written out for you. Now, let's say you're making a garment and it doesn't have a schematic, or it only has some very minor measurements. You can work with whatever you're given. But if you're not sure how you should block that sweater out, don't panic. Go into your closet and find a sweater with comparable dimensions and a comparable bust measurement to the one you just knit, and measure the heck out of that sweater. Measure the upper arm, measure the length of the sleeve. Make sure it's a sweater you enjoy the fit of because you're replicating it in the sweater you just knit, and match those measurements. You're doing your own schematic. Now, what's the problem with overblocking? Like, why is this an issue? No one's gonna chase you down on the street and say, wow, your sweater looks stretched out, you overblocked it. But it can lead to some problems down the road, especially because that blocking may not stick around as long as you'd like it to. If I were to stretch my sweater out, over time, it would start to shrink back into its original form. Yarn, and especially animal fibers like wool, they have a memory. Let's use my hair as an example. I have naturally curly hair, and my hair is an animal fiber, just like wool. It has a memory, and it wants to curl up just like you see here. And as I'm drying it, I have a little bit of movement to shape the way my hair will dry and set. I can scrunch it up with my fingers, and I can especially use heat to lock in a slightly different shape to the patterning of my hair that it naturally wants to have. I can even use a blow dryer or a flat iron to straighten my hair out, to stretch it straight. But for anybody with curly hair, you know, if you go outside with your straightened hair and you wait a day or two, or you go out into humidity or rain, your hair is not going to stay stretched out and straight. It's going to slowly start to squeeze back up into that natural curl pattern that it wants to be in. It wants to be in its natural shape and its natural state. And so if you block a garment and you stretch it out, especially if it's a natural fiber like wool, it is going to want over time to curl back up into the shape that it originally was. And you might find that that garment you stretched out into an appropriate length becomes cropped over time as you wear it because those fibers want to go back to their natural form. I found this with lace knitting as well. I've knit lace shawls where I blocked them out and open, and over time I do have to reblock those lace shawls because they want to curl back up and come back in, and I lose that stitch definition and the edges start to curl, and so I do have to reblock something like lace. So we can definitely see that there is an impact. If you're stretching a garment out, that blocking is not going to be permanent, and you may have to block more frequently than if you hadn't stretched it in the first place. You only used so much yardage in your garment, and you can't magically make that yardage grow. So if you are pulling and stretching your sleeves longer on your garment, you are going to lose circumference in that sleeve. Same thing goes for the torso of the sweater. If you're stretching that torso wide to gain extra positive ease, you're going to lose length. So just know if you are gaining length somewhere, you are losing length somewhere else. And it may impact the fit in a way that you don't like. Now, do you have to use a schematic when you block your knits? No. Lots of people block their knits every day and they don't use a schematic. You don't have to do anything in knitting. But my favorite thing about using a schematic is that I achieve a predictable result. I know exactly what size and shape that garment is going to be, and there's no guesswork and no surprises. I find that it leads to a more professional looking garment, that everything's a little bit more even and symmetrical, and I think it's worth the extra time investment up front to get that really professional, clean looking result. Give it a try the next time you block your knits. It definitely takes a little bit longer, but I think it's worth it. Let me know what you think. Do you use a schematic when you block your knits, or do you have another blocking tip that you think is really transformative? Let me know in the comments. If you found this video interesting or helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. It was really nice talking about knitting with you today, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye.